GM. We have a new FIP today that I want to talk about called flexible storage. It gives users the ability to rent more storage and store more data on their hubs. So the way hubs work today is Alice, when she writes a new message, uploads it to her hub, and Bob does the same with his hub. Now, Alice and Bob's hubs talk to each other and swap messages so that Alice's message ends up on Bob's and vice versa. But hubs also communicate globally, and we're going to end up in a state where all hubs have the exact same set of messages across the entire network. And this is a really nice property because if Bob's hub were to go down, now all of the other hubs still have Bob's data, and Bob can continue to connect to a different hub and pick up where he left off. So that's a really nice property. Now, the limiting factor behind hubs is each of them is a server or a computer that has to run somewhere, and that is a finite amount of storage. If Alice were to upload lots and lots of messages and fill up the entire space on the hubs, Bob wouldn't be able to upload his messages. So there's sort of a tragedy of the commons here, where storage is a scarce resource, and we have to have some kind of system that actually manages it in a fair way that prevents overconsumption by any one user at any point in time. Now, the way we've achieved this so far is by limiting signups and having finite storage. So what we've done is we've taken the hub, divvied it up into little chunks of space that can be reserved for different users, and we assign each user a single unit of space. We also limit the total number of people on the network to make sure that the number of slots don't go beyond what a hub can actually store. And Alice is allowed to use one storage slot, and Bob is allowed to use another. Now, there's two problems with this approach. The first one is we want to open up signups and make them permissionless so that anyone can sign up to the network. The downside of this is Alice will be able to sign up and create thousands and thousands of accounts if she likes and take up thousands of slots and clog up the network. This isn't ideal, and we need a way to prevent that from happening and, again, over-consuming resources on the network. The second problem is that every user today gets the exact same amount of space. So Bob gets 25,000 messages, Alice gets 25,000 messages, even if Alice is a very active poster who a lot of people subscribe to, and Bob is just a lurker who doesn't have any posts at all. So Bob's space is largely going underutilized, while Alice's space is overutilized, and a lot of her messages are getting pruned, while it would be valuable to retain them on the network. So flexible storage addresses both of these problems by introducing a rent-based model for storage. So the way this works is we divvy up the hubs into a bunch of units, each being a unit of storage that can store a finite number of messages, and we declare a total capacity for the hubs. This is set to 20 gigabytes today. It will likely grow over time, but each hub promises to have at least this much storage available for messages created by users. Now, there's a contract on-chain called the storage contract that's aware of how many units of storage there are and can rent them out to each user. So Alice can connect to this contract, make a transaction, and actually rent a certain number of storage units for a year. In this case, let's say she does 6 of them. She's now allowed to upload, 6 times 25,000, 120,000 messages to the hubs. And the way this works is hubs keep track of the storage contract, and they're constantly reading which user has rented another unit of storage, and they adjust their storage allocations internally to make space for Alice or Bob as each of them register units of storage. Now, the nice thing about this is storage becomes a very flexibly priced resource. So you can imagine that while the network is underutilized, the price of storage remains very low, so people can acquire storage for cheap. But as the network gets more full, the price of storage goes up because it becomes a more scarce resource, and we want to make sure that it's getting allocated to people who are most likely to use it for valuable purposes. The initial version of this system will likely be very simple. You can read the FIP for more details, but it will likely have a bunch of manually tuned parameters that set the price, that set the number of available storage units, and the duration of the rent. But over time, you can actually imagine that this is a more dynamic system that automatically prices storage in different ways and allocates it efficiently among different users. You can read the FIP for more details. It'll be linked in the video. But we're really excited about this proposal because it's going to increase the amount of content people can store on the network, especially for users that are very active and want to publish a lot of content onto Farcaster today.